We've talked a million times on this show about the two different divisions of communism, the elites and the streets. The elites aren't really true believers, but they're trying for money and power. And so they give orders to the violent street animals who go out and march and loot and vandalize things. And we've talked a lot about race communism. This is by far the easiest sell to the masses. It always has been, always will be. It was in the Soviet Union, it was in China, and it is today. You know, white people suck, all this crap you see. And remember, the street animals get away with the things they do because they get legal protection from the elite ones. Remember this stuff?
This man's life matters. He matters. Being black in America should not be a death sentence.
Black lives that are under threat every single day. And I'm glad the mayor of Minneapolis stepped up right away in the police department and took swift action to fire the officers involved. But I don't think that's enough. And I don't think we can move forward unless we take aggressive action to rip out the insidious race-based inequalities that corrupt every part of our society.
I want to be clear in how I characterize this. This is mostly a protest. It is not, generally speaking, unruly.
They are strictly principled anti-fascists, and they've taken a principled stand to stand against white supremacists and white nationalists wherever they may show up.
It says it right in the name, Antifa, anti-fascism, which is what they were there fighting.
Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Not militia. That's what his FBI. FBI director said.
Well, then, you know what?
No, we're done, sir. We're moving on to the next. We're moving.
When a bat hits you over the head, that's not an idea.
Everybody in your administration tells you the truth has a bad idea.
Can I tell you what?
You have no ideas.
Antifa is a dangerous,
all right,
radical
gentlemen,
group.
we're now moving.
Joining me now, one of my favorites, Charles Cornish-Dale. You probably know him as Raw Egg Nationalist online. He wrote a wonderful book, The Last Men. Highly recommend it. Charles, the street animals, they get their orders and they march forward and they do what they do, my brother.
Yes, yeah. That really is the way that it takes place. And I think it's important, actually, to understand that this really is a domestic insurgency that's taking place. Mm-hmm. That was made clear in 2020, and it was good that you showed clips from 2020, from the summer of Floyd, which really, everything that took place during that summer showed the way in which the sort of low level, the ground, the foot soldiers, the Antifa dudes, the black bloc people on the ground, the way that they essentially actually take orders from political elites, from local political elites, but also from national political elites as well. So, I mean, it really was the case that actually the Democrat Party basically deployed its own paramilitary, Antifa, these Black Lives Matter people and other groups, onto the streets in order to effect what was basically a color revolution in 2020. It was the sole aim was to prevent Donald Trump from being re-elected, and it worked. So we've seen this in action. We know that this is exactly how it works. We know the interplay between these foot soldiers, people on the ground, and the elites, and something's got to be done about it.
Charles, can you explain in your own words why it works? Because to a normal, logical person, they see Democrats and their pets assaulting and looting and murdering and destroying things, and they say to themselves, well, people will naturally reject that at the voting booth. That's not what people want. They don't want looting. They don't want burning. People will go out and roundly reject that. But that's not necessarily how it works. Why?
No, it's not how it works. And I mean, I think what you have to understand is you have to understand the success of the left in capturing the culture. They've been doing this for decades. And in fact, actually, they've been doing it probably for about a century. So there was a Marxist theorist called Antonio Gramsci, who was put in prison in Italy in the 1920s, and he wrote a series of reflections on the failure of communist revolution in Italy and in the rest of Europe and the Western world after the success of the Russian Revolution. And he basically outlined a plan for cultural revolution, for what became known as cultural Marxism. And the plan really wasn't anymore to look to the workers, to look to a kind of economic uprising, but actually to infiltrate and subvert all of the dominant institutions, all of the most important institutions in European societies as a prelude to a broader social revolution. And so that's what's been happening for decades. We've had the capture of all of the institutions of government, of education, public services, by radical leftists, and it's borne terrible, terrible fruit. And I think it's produced generations now of young people in particular who have absolutely no clue, have no real mooring in reality. And so, yes, you do get this kind of paradoxical situation where you think, oh, of course, people will reject looting, they'll reject violence, they'll reject these kind of divisive appeals to kind of racial resentment. But of course they won't, because actually they've been stewed in it for their entire lives, from elementary school through high school and certainly in university if you attend university. And so I think there's a huge, huge amount of programming now that needs to be broken.
How do we break it? I know Donald Trump famously came out and said Antifa's a terror organization yesterday, and of course I support that and whatnot, but you could go smash up as many Antifa cells as you like if we have legions of young people who've been indoctrinated to think that Western society sucks and white people are the enemy and all these other things. That's a lot of years of indoctrination we have to reverse.
Yes, it is. I mean, this isn't going to change overnight. I mean, the left has taken 100 years really to get this far, to capture the major institutions of society, to capture the youth, to create this great indoctrination machine. And so, yes, I mean, this is going to be a multi-year project, I think. I mean, one thing that obviously needs to happen is that we either create parallel institutions, which is what somebody like Christopher Rufo, for example, is doing with great success in Florida, with, I think, what is it, the New College of Humanities, or a university like that that's been taken over and that's now sort of being de-radicalized, as it were. Um, but I also think that what needs to happen is that the apparatus of terror needs to be broken up. And that's what's so encouraging, I think, about Donald Trump's designation of Antifa as a terrorist organization. It's the first real sign that actually the American right, the conservatives, the Republican Party, whatever, takes seriously the threat of the radical left as an organized network, as an organized grouping that employs terror tactics, that is funded as well by, billionaire donors. Not just George Soros, but lots of wealthy people are channeling money into this leftist terror network, getting it out onto the streets, onto the people who harass, into the hands of the people who harass and dox and ultimately murder people too. So, I mean, I think it's going to have to be a multi-pronged approach. It's going to have to focus on uh, recapturing institutions, but also in the immediate term, right now, it needs to focus on this terror network because, last week, Charlie Kirk was murdered by a radical leftist, and that's not the first murder, and it probably won't be the last either, unfortunately.
Charles, what do the billionaires get out of this? This is one of those psychological things that so many people struggle with. And as you pointed out, Soros is, of course, the boogeyman that everyone knows, and he's very real, but he's far from alone. I'm a billionaire. I've got a yacht and a private jet and 10, 19-year-old girlfriends, and I'm eating grapes in Greece right now. What do I want to get involved in all this stuff for?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting, and it does. I mean, certainly at first glance, it does appear to go against the interests of the billionaires. But I think fundamentally, you just have to think that these people are interested in control. It is a form of control that they derive, from financing these groups. It does allow them political power and influence. But I think there is possibly too. I think there is in some cases an actual ideological commitment too. It's difficult to tell. it's difficult to tell, certainly, a true believer from, just a billionaire who is basically trying to increase his power. But I do think it's there too. But it's a strange question, and it's one that's actually quite hard to answer satisfactorily, completely, because it just doesn't seem to make sense. You'd think, oh, the billionaires, of course. I mean, in classic Marxist theory, then of course it's the capitalists who are against the revolutionaries. But that actually isn't necessarily the case. I mean, I think these people think they won't get swallowed up by the revolution. And as we know, I mean, a revolution almost invariably devours its own children. So they may very well be mistaken in that regard. But I do think that people like George Soros and these billionaires think that they'll be able to keep their wealth, that they'll be able to keep their influence in some sort of future radical left-wing communist society.
Yeah. Generally doesn't work out that way. That's the one good thing you can say about communism. Charles, his book is The Last Men. Highly recommended. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.